Hi, I'm Casey Rogers, and I'm doing an action research on using student-led instruction with 8th grade students in a careers class in a middle school unified arts rotation. The school is Martinsburg South Middle School in Berkeley County, West Virginia. The topic of my action research studied the process of using student-led, student-centered instructional strategies to increase student engagement in 8th grade careers students. As a refresher, the action research question was, does student-led instruction increase student engagement? The sub-questions were, how does student-led instruction increase student engagement, and what evidence is there that student engagement increased? To initially begin my action research, I found some literature sources that supported my action research. Ryan and Deci, 2000. Student-led instruction is an instructional strategy used for the establishment of a student-led learning environment. Student-led, student-centered instruction embraces the self-determination theory with the focus on student behavior through self-motivation and self-determination. In the Barricade study, 2005, students were encouraged through a classroom shift from teacher-led instruction to student-led instruction through role play, simulation, small group, and whole class discussions to embrace the effectiveness of learning in the classroom. Students participated in small group and whole group discussions to brainstorm and create one academic goal for the class per group, along with objectives to achieve these goals to meet their interests and desires of learning in the careers class. The findings of the study showed that a shift to a student-centered curriculum had a positive effect on student performance and learning experiences within the classroom. Barkley and additional individuals such as Snipes and Trans and Vygotsky also supported student-led instruction. Student-led, student-centered instruction has facilitated a strong social context for learning and positively impacts the educational environment by providing students with a common experiential framework from which to design, develop, and explore their curriculum. Student-led, student-centered instruction promotes engagement for connection to real-life opportunities by activating the growth mindset with positive academic behaviors in the learning environment with peer support and guidance. Within my action research, I studied 22 students in one section of my 8th grade Unified Arts Careers class. There were 10 female students and 12 male students, as typically my classes are more males than females in the Unified Arts classes. All students were placed into small groups with roughly 4 students within each group. The class included 2 special education students attending class with no aid and the remaining 20 students classified as general education students. The 2 students with disabilities noted in an IEP were high-functioning students who attended all Unified Arts and Fine Arts classes. They were observed and analyzed more closely with the evaluation rubric, ensuring that their accommodations and needs were provided and met throughout the course. Each group had the opportunity to establish one learning goal for the curriculum map, and students collaborated with peers in establishing learning objectives. Once decided upon a learning goal, the goal was added to the overall class curriculum map. Students received hands-on opportunities and gained experience in working with students from various backgrounds and cultures. The expectation for student-led instruction was that all students would receive an equal opportunity to share their interests and achieve their goals with peer support. Student-led instruction was a positive asset to the learning environment, and students took ownership for their own learning, exercising responsibility and accountability. I served as a guide to encourage students to create new perspectives and make new interpretations in the curriculum material to gain a significant experience. Teacher assistance was always available and provided when needed for students, as classwork was monitored during class time by teacher walkthroughs and student observations. Peer support, as well as teacher assistance, was also available and provided for special education students throughout the course. For example, I assigned one of my students with special needs to work with a student who was always active and engaged in classroom activities. These students were an excellent example of peer support and teamwork. Special education students, along with general education students, were graded on their participation, effort, and participation within each activity. I kept a weekly observation log to monitor how the whole class as a collective group was progressing toward increased and improved student engagement in the educational environment through social learning experiences. The data was collected by going from student to student, or sometimes small group to group, while students were completing their designed activities and meeting their goals and objectives of their curriculum map. Student interviews will also use to collect data through student feedback from a select number of 4 students. Students were interviewed during an instructional day during lunchtime with questions pertinent to the research questions. The tool of student measurement that was used to monitor student progress was the Engaged Learning rubric provided by the West Virginia Department of Education for measurement of student engagement and enhanced learning. In the rubric, students were either marked as excellent, worth 3 points, good, worth 2 points, or poor, worth 1 point for each of the 7 categories, such as strategic learning, collaboration, authenticity, challenge, multidisciplinary approach, generative learning, and mode of instruction. The qualitative themes were determined and analyzed by the demonstrated behavior of the students during the exercise and implementation of the student-led instruction by student participation and action within the class. The categories within the rubric were appropriate and applicable for the class activities, goals, and objectives. The contents within the curriculum map provided outlets for data provided by behaviors and demonstrations of each theme, as well as additional opportunities for weekly observation and analyzation as a collective class to see overall improvement of student engagement and the impact of student-led instruction. The bar graph below shows the 7 categories that were within the West Virginia Department of Education Engaged Learning rubric. The whole class student engagement by week is shown below. The graph shown below shows the weekly totals of whole class student engagement. Week 3, 66.7% of the students were engaged in classroom activities. Week 4, 76.2% were engaged. Week 5, an increase to 85.7% of the students engaged. And Week 6, ending out the 6-week course, 95.2% of the students were engaged in all classroom activities and goals and objectives in the curriculum map. The results of the action research show that virtually all the students increased their engagement through student-led instruction and learning. The Engaged Learning rubric was completed for the entire class as the overall measure of increased student engagement throughout the 6-week course. Analysis and reasoning earned for the final Engaged Learning rubric for the cumulative class point total was 20 out of 21, resulting in an additional 2-point increase from week to week. Field notes and rubric scores also both reinforce the positive feedback achieved from student interviews. 3 themes emerged within the action research. The first theme, student-led, student-centered instruction, embraces the focus on student behavior through self-motivation and self-determination, was observed within the first few weeks of the careers course. The students were excited and self-motivated to design their class curriculum map and perform activities that will help prepare them for their future in the workforce, which is also reflective of Theme 3. They were not only self-motivated but self-determined to be creative in their academic studies as well. Their motivation and determination resulted in increased engagement in classroom activities. Theme 2, student-led, student-centered instruction facilitated a strong social context for learning, worked in conjunction with Theme 1 and the influential factors of self-motivation and self-determination. For Theme 2, during each activity, students became open to peer support from one another, increased collaboration with their classmates within their small groups and as a full class, and gave excellent focused effort on each activity. A typical student response during student-led classroom instruction was, "This is fun and we have more freedom learning." Activities on the curriculum map were chosen because of the high interest level of the students and their excitement and motivation to learn and apply their learning and achievement. Theme 3, in week 5 until the final week of the course, students began to make application to Theme 3, which is student-led, student-centered instruction promotes engagement through an increase in student accountability and responsibility. An increase in points for the Engaged Learning rubric were due to the improvement in collaboration and challenge of student activities. During this time, small groups in the class began to take total control of their collaboration experiences. Tasks became more complex and students were motivated to take greater focus and total control of the learning environment. Here are some samples of feedback from the student interviews. Student 17, A special education student gave me his answer verbally and I helped him put it into sentences. He said, "I didn't like most of the activities that we did, but I liked my goal and objective. I like making my own classwork, and after the careers class, I'm able to speak out more in other classes and I am more confident in my social skills." Student 20, a general education student, said, "The class had more freedom in what we learned and I enjoyed that our voices were heard." Student 3, another general education student who was interviewed, said, "I feel more prepared leaving this class than I did when the class first began. Student-led learning really helped me open my mind with thinking, and I really noticed how my social skills have improved." The recommended plan of action was influenced by the results of using student-led, student-centered instruction in the classroom. The collected data from action research displays the positive impact on both general education and special education students in the learning environment. Educational opportunities were presented and student experiences were gained in an impactful manner. The data shows that through peer support, teacher encouragement, and motivation, all students can benefit from student-led instruction. The connection and application to real-world scenarios and experiences established a greater knowledge and understanding of what is expected in the future. The factors of demographics, motivation and engagement level, and the maturity level will all be different for each class. As the researcher, or anyone implementing this, we must understand the factors to determine the level of implementation and control of the learning environment that will be placed into the hands of the students. The level of teacher guidance will also be different for each class and determined by each factor listed above. With the appropriate level of student control, each class will be tailored for student achievement and success.